you're tuned in for the Power and Energy news channel ESI Africa. For this episode, I am speaking with Ben Pullen, the founder and chairman of Smarter Mobility Africa. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you, Nicolette. Great to be here with you.
So we're going to be talking about mobility, transportation, and making it smarter. So what is the first thing that pops into your mind when we talk about smarter mobility?
The first thing that pops into mind is that transport is really the connector of everything we do. So whether it's about education of people, healthcare, opened opportunities for work, the way that we move goods around, it all needs to be done through the form of mobility, different forms of mobility. And so there's a real need to make sure that the way we move people and goods around is done in a smarter way, so that we increase opportunities as opposed to restrict opportunities. And what we've seen in the last, say, 10 years is a complete revolution in transport, mainly happening all across the world. And that is obviously happening here in South Africa and in Africa. And that's what we're here really to talk about today at Enlit Africa. We're focusing specifically today on the electrification of government and business vehicles. So that's the electric vehicle industry combined with battery electricity generation. But that really is only one pillar underneath the mobility umbrella. So mobility is about public transport, rail, mobility as a service, scooters, walking, cycling. It's a whole world in itself, but today we're really focused on electric vehicles here at Enlit.
Right, exactly, and there are also opportunities in terms of local manufacturing for electric vehicles and smarter mobility. Do you see that happening in South Africa and any other African country?
Absolutely, so here in South Africa it's already a huge manufacturing base for the automotive sector, and I believe the automotive industry is the largest contributor to GDP in South Africa. So you already have that manufacturing base. You have new automotive companies moving to South Africa to manufacture vehicles here. Some of those traditionally have been only in the electric vehicle space, so there's a good chance that they'll be bringing their electric vehicles here very soon. And then the other thing to consider is that oil is South Africa's largest import. So when we talk about cost of vehicles and cost of electric vehicles, sometimes what we forget is the cost of oil to the whole economy and what could happen to the economy if we actually looked at changing the fuel source for transportation. So mainly going towards electricity and then focusing at obviously local production of electricity.
So it's not just about smarter transportation and smarter mobility, it's also about climate change. And I want to talk a little bit about electric vehicle ownership. One of the things is to consider is range anxiety, and then also looking at load shedding in South Africa. How would you then charge your electric vehicle? So what are your what is your advice to people that are looking at purchasing a vehicle and having range anxiety?
So what you've highlighted there is probably the two most common perceived challenges, I would say. And I use the word perceived because in many cases, if not all cases, it's not a real issue. So I'll give you some examples, some context to that. So the load shedding issue is very rarely an issue for a person or a business just because of the fact that load shedding doesn't happen as a 24-hour continuous thing. So you can plan around load shedding, you can charge your vehicles, whether it's a car or a van or a bus, and therefore you really aren't exposed that much to the risk of load shedding. Unless it's a sporadic one that you didn't know about and you really were on 0% battery and you had to charge very urgently. But there would always be somewhere to charge. You wouldn't be sat there at the side of the road or at your office with 0% battery and then no options to charge. So range anxiety is a perceived issue in my view as well. And in most cases, your trips will be under 10 or 15 kilometers. So it's very rare that you're going to be doing 400 kilometers every day. When you do those long trips, you can plan for it. And if you really needed to, you could use another vehicle. But what we have to remember here is we have to try and serve for the majority of use cases. And most people's use cases are driving to and from the office on the consumer side. And then when we look at businesses, let's say businesses within Cape Town, they pretty much know what kind of routes they'll be doing. So if it's a delivery company, they'll know that their route that day is to go around this distance, this route. Maybe they'll be covering 50 or 100 kilometers. So they don't really have any issues there with range anxiety. Charging, they would plan as a business, and that's what we'll be discussing here over the next few days around the infrastructure requirements for charging, because for a business it can be different to a consumer. If a business has 10 vehicles, they then might want to think about self-generation, battery storage on site. And we have some great businesses from across the world. We have the Dundee City Council from the UK talking about how the last 10 years they've electrified government and business vehicles, the challenges and opportunities that came with that. And then we have Aramex, which is the well-known delivery logistics company, who made good use of solar power generation many years ago and are now benefiting from that generation, from charging their vehicles with that power. So they've reduced their energy bill, they've reduced their transport cost as well.
That's amazing. That's really very fantastic. So you're here at ESI Africa, but you also have something happening in October. Let's talk a bit about that, Smarter Mobility Africa Conference.
That's right, yeah. So the Smarter Mobility Africa Summit is a 3-day all-encompassing event. And we say all-encompassing because it really is about bringing the whole mobility industry together. We have 15 stages, 15 themes, a test track for electric vehicles, a test ride area for things like scooters and bikes. And that event is really about the whole mobility industry. Mm-hmm. The reason we do that and the reason that's important is because many different pillars within the mobility sector might be focused on one area, but they are also exposed and influential in other areas. So I'll give you some context there. We look at the Gautrain, that's the rail industry. It's also public transport, but they operate their own bus fleet. And so even though they're focused on the rail side of mobility, they also have this bus fleet that they have to manage. So they're interested in the electric vehicle industry. They're also interested in self-generation, in storage, in ticketing and payments. So all of this is covered at Smarter Mobility Africa. It's taking place at CSIR in Pretoria, and with the host partner once again, the Gauteng Department of Roads and Transport.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Ben, and thank you for watching. That was all about electric vehicles and also another very exciting event that you can attend in October. So like, share and subscribe to ESI Africa for more of this type of content.